Hi there, this is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you for a special episode on today's show. We're going to be talking about how the Florida Keys have been affected by COVID-19, and I have a special guest, Jill Zima Borski. She works as a reporter for the Key West Citizen. She's not representing them today, but she's going to be speaking as her expert opinion as a reporter. And experiencing down here, and also a long-time Islamorada resident. Thank you, Jill.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Jill, I imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but currently there are 14,000, around, give or take a couple hundred cases in Florida. How quickly did this move upon you, just the development? When did you become aware of this being an issue, COVID-19?
Yeah, I think in the Keys, maybe about mid-March, all of a sudden, most of our news coverage began to be about COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So while we were able to do additional interesting features and other news stories, all of a sudden, our municipalities meetings weren't happening so frequently, or the school board meeting was going online because they wanted to practice social distancing, that kind of thing. So it really became all about the virus about mid-March, to my recollection.
Okay. Do you recall, I remember them talking, in international news, that hearing about the now pandemic in China. And I think that was, for me, it was January. At first I heard, beginning of January. And then, I just thought, hey, here, we've been through H1N1, SARS, bird flu. Bird flu was years ago. I think that was like right after 9/11. But this just seemed to, when you start seeing these other countries, like, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, you start seeing Italy, Spain. First, I think it's just China, and then you start hearing South Korea, and they dealt with it at their own pace. And then you just seen the progression coming over the United States. And then you hear about Washington State. That was in February.
Exactly.
And then California.
Exactly.
And I traced a timeline here just to give it a Florida one, and I'm gonna go over it real quickly so the listeners can see. It seems like so long ago because of what we had to go through, but I think if you break it down real quickly. March 1st, the first case is detected in Florida, and there were two people. It was a 29-year-old female who traveled from Italy, and I don't have the other person here, but there were two cases initially tracked. On March 2nd, AARP, the American Association of Retired People, put out a warning for Florida nursing homes. On March 3rd, the third case, one of them was the 22-year-old sister of the 29-year-old, and then it starts speeding up real quickly. Florida Department of Health sets up a hotline. May 4th, Governor DeSantis mentions that the risk is low for Floridians, and the fifth person becomes infected. On March 5th, two patients die, and they were both in their 70s. On March 8th, the cruise ship, the Regal Princess, is ordered to remain offshore. Publix starts limiting items, this is March 8th, starts limiting items due to hoarding. On 9th, there's a state of emergency. On the 13th, Universal Studios and Disney closed. That's a big deal. That was a big deal when they closed.
Exactly.
And the public schools on, I think, sometime the 14th, maybe, the public schools, they extended a break and then eventually did an indeterminate stop. And then March 17th, the thing that affected the Keys the most, I think, and this is where you're going to come in and start talking about this, March 17th, the order came through from the state to close all bars and nightclubs, where there's a little misunderstanding for a couple of hours. They thought it was restaurants, which who didn't see that coming when they closed bars and restaurants. On the 20th, it was all restaurants were ordered to switch to takeout. And on the 23rd, DeSantis orders I think there was some additional ones, but then there was the state of emergency, the closure of the restaurants, and on the 22nd, the Florida Keys closed to tourists. And on the 27th, the Stretch and Cardsound Road were blocked to all non-Keys residents and people that did not work or have legitimate business down here. So it moved in a matter of 3 weeks to March 22nd for us, where we're closing down the highway.
Exactly.
Initially.
So, go ahead.
Well, no, but initially, when you said it was mid-March, right? And it pretty much was when it started affecting. That's the Universal and Disney closing. That was a seminal event for me. So, wow, they wouldn't have closed unless it was serious. And I'm going to let you take it from there. Now, at that point, you're doing your job. What are you seeing here?
Exactly. So Keys wide, we did start, I think, based upon what Key West was doing. I think, given that they're probably our largest draw in, the Florida Keys, when the bars and restaurants later, were ordered to close and have takeout only. I mean, that became an issue because people were not aware, perhaps, of the gravity of the situation. And, of course, they go down, all of us go to Key West to have a good time, and we're certainly not inclined to isolate. We're more inclined to reach out and be surrounded by people when we go to Key West, because there's a lot of fun to be had, a lot of great music to hear, and a lot of entertainment to enjoy. So, for example, I was set to usher a show that was getting all kinds of positive reviews at the Waterfront Theater, and my heart broke when the show just closed down, and it was having such a successful run. And the message comes to me, nope, we're closing the show down, no ushers needed. In fact, and then a few days later, all the shows were canceled for the rest of the season. So, in terms of entertainment in Key West and beyond, we started to see, look, things are not okay, and anything that we have typically enjoyed and looked forward to are not going to be available to us. And it sent a message, I think, that we needed to take this seriously. So whereas a few bars continued to serve drinks, they shortly were visited by City of Key West staff, et cetera, and then did the submitted to the closures and or the takeouts if they were serving food. So that's when it really set in that party time is over, unfortunately for all of us, and and we had to adhere to these rules for our own and other people's sake. And so that's what I first noticed. It was huge in Key West, and then, of course, it trickled beyond. And I think what I'm seeing now especially is the concern for people's welfare in terms of, do they have enough to eat? Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of post-hurricane. assistance, when, basically food banks are working nonstop and restaurants step up and offer free meals for pickup. And it's Keys wide. I just was notified that in the Lower Keys, at the Lower Keys Chamber of Commerce, serving like Big Pine and some of the smaller islands around there, a former Upper Keys resident, Lisa Maletti, is sharing home-cooked meals. And people are being very resourceful. So, for example, if somebody gets out of the Keys up into Homestead, they're literally seeing squash and green beans and, other vegetables just sitting in piles by the road because they were destined for restaurants, and the pickups aren't coming. So, for example, Lisa Maletti in Big Pine said, look, who has trucks? Who can go gather some of this food for our people? And she made it happen. And it's free for the taking. It's great if people can give donations, but it's, as ever in the Keys, there's not a lot of judgment. And, people are freely giving, and they're welcome to freely take as needed.
Oh, well, it was wonderful that you mentioned that there was the reluctance. I would say there was a little lag in some of the restaurants or bars closing or observing the social distancing rule because it was, I can't say their reason. It was kind of a new thing for everyone. You never had to experience before, closing for that reason. There were times when they closed restaurants due to hurricanes coming, for public safety, but this was an altogether different animal. On another thing, that speaking of social isolation, there was a time when they had closed the restaurants and the bars, and even put a tarp over the southernmost buoy in Key West. There was still a lot of traffic coming into the Keys because of so many people being in the South Florida when they shut down everything in Miami.
Yes.
It seemed
and that's it.
Yeah.
It coincided with spring break for a lot of schools as well. So, families look forward to spending time with one another or these long weekends. Any of the people stuck in our northern U.S. that need a sunshine break, they're down here. They want to enjoy what we have every day in terms of, bright sunshine and warm weather. And yes, so I think a lot of people were here to enjoy that. And I think a case in point, I don't know if you heard about the woman from Wisconsin who was turned around at the checkpoint on US 1. And, she's just a tourist. She's just a visitor. I didn't say whether she had ever been to the Keys before, but apparently on her bucket list was to drive the bridges of the Florida Keys. And we take this for granted. And, of course, those of us who are in Islamorada, we get annoyed at the slowdown near Snake Creek because, people are saying, oh, there's the water, right?
Yeah, I want to stop and take a picture.
Exactly. So this woman at the checkpoint, apparently she was turned away. She got back in line, and the second time, even though she was being turned away, she said, you can't stop me, apparently, to our wonderful sheriff's office deputies, and you know how kindly they took to that. Yeah. And so I guess she proceeded forward and was arrested. And but it just goes to show you.
About this. They actually you didn't arrested at the checkpoint.
Yes, and you can imagine really if it's their first time to the Florida Keys or if they have their heart set on driving over our bridges and seeing the water on both sides. That is excitement for them, and they've looked forward to this, just like all the things that we who are cooped up, have looked forward to, whether it was a spring break adventure, or whether it was visiting family over the Passover or Easter holidays. I mean, we get emotionally involved in the future, and so it was just kind of ironic that this poor woman made a bad decision and paid the consequences. And I sympathize, but the facts are the facts, and our deputies are going to do their job and keep us all safe. So that was just kind of a ironic, sad tale.
Okay, well, I understand. You know what? I'm of like mind. I think you recall several weeks ago there was an impromptu protest at 107.
That's it. Yes,
yeah,
I heard about that.
It was kind of a negative thing, the way they, welcome to the Keys, now go home.
Exactly.
Yeah, and considering that the same people you're yelling at may eventually want to come back if they're not put off by that may have not have been, that was a visceral response to a problem that has empirical answers, meaning you have to flatten the curve, you got to reduce the amount of people cycling through and contacts, and that's the main thing. It's not a personal thing, and we seem to take it personally sometimes, and that's with the checkpoint. And I want to get back to how selective some of the people have been, because not everyone that was renting, when they closed all the hotels and motels and short-term rentals, there was an exclusion that was people that had a month or more lease going on. And
exactly.
And there's people that are they're people from New York, and they've been down here since January, let's say, our
exactly.
snowbirds. And they're and they have the same infection rates that we have because they've been here since the beginning.
Yes, yes.
And to go and have that response, they go home just because you see a New York license plate. Now, obviously, if you're up there in New York City right now and you decide to get on a plane to come down here, that may be a foolhardy choice. But to just have that knee-jerk reaction, seeing that New York plate and reacting to people that way, it's possible. Now, a lot of times, a lot of people think that maybe some of the decision for the March 27th decision that the county made to shut down the stretch, which was disagreed to by the state. I mean, the state did not want to participate in that. Had to do with supplies down here. That people were concerned that people were coming from the mainland doing some hunting gathering routines, hitting the stores and cleaning out the supplies. Do you have any feelings about that? Was there? I don't know either way. I know people started hoarding, and we've seen that started happening, on March 8th when public started seeing it.
Exactly. So it was interesting. I have a couple thoughts there. I did hear that as far south as Marathon, the hoarding from people from the mainland was happening. And I was in Winn-Dixie, I believe, a Saturday morning, and sometimes I go like at 7 a.m. to avoid crowds, but I was just there at like 9:30 in the morning, and it was noticeable. Okay, so first of all, the parking lot, and so I go to the tavern near Winn-Dixie. The parking lot was very full, and I thought, weird, it's still a Saturday morning, and people normally might be getting ready to go out in their boat or whatever, and they've shopped the Friday before, we have our routines, right? Mm-hmm. So I get there, and I literally am going for like four things, like, we always need bananas and this and that, right? And so, first of all, in this is just the way it is. There was a rudeness. Like when we are Keys people and we tend to know each other or recognize faces or whatever, I am not going to fight with you over bananas. It wouldn't be my way. I would let you choose your bananas, and then I would go in and choose my banana. You know what I mean? And it was just this feeling in the store that people were alarmed, and I had to get my stuff before you got your stuff. Like that was the vibe I was getting as I did my shopping. And so honestly, I said something out loud, like kind of under my breath, which basically was, I have to get out of here. This is crazy. Like there was just this crazy vibe, and I didn't like it at all. It wasn't my normal Winn-Dixie atmosphere, that kind of thing. And so it was funny because I didn't even think to go raid the toilet paper aisle or go get, stock up on milk or whatever. I was just there for my normal few things, And so anyway, so all I can say was there was, okay, and this was another factor. I think when I go to the grocery store, I go alone, and I'm shopping for 4 people or whatever, right? Sometimes I think, again, the mainlanders, they come en masse. There's 3 people surrounding one cart. And so, again, it's just like more clogged and more, it's just more people, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was obvious. Like, it wasn't just one person pushing his or her cart. It was the family that was grabbing this, that, and the other thing. So anyway, so all I'm saying is I think firsthand it did happen, and those of us like me had the feeling, I just need to get out of here because this is crazy, whereas, others were stocking up for a long time, and we are taking whatever this grocery store has in order to be prepared for the coming month or whatever. And I just wasn't there yet in my mindset. I was kind of appalled by the whole deal and got out, Yeah. So sadly, it happened. And I will tell you right now, to this day, Tavern near Winn-Dixie does not have any toilet paper, and they have wonderfully supplied 99-cent boxes of tissues, Kleenex, the entire length of their paper towel and toilet paper shelves. That's what you can get. You can get tissues in a box for 99 cents, but good luck getting a roll anywhere.
I have 2 thoughts on that. One is that when I did notice that in the morning. I went several times. I go to a meeting, early morning meeting, several times a week, and I stopped. I was skipping the beginning of the meeting to get a jump start at Publix, and right around, I guess it was March 11th or 12th, I got to the store, and there was a line 10 minutes before the store opened outside of about 50 people. So I saw that, and I said, well, that ain't going to happen. But then I did an inventory at the house, and I looked at the paper towels and the toilet paper, and I realized that at one point, we had 16 rolls. There was my wife and my daughter, and I go, that's 16 rolls. When I was single years ago, that would have been over a year's supply for me. So I didn't really, and my wife did explain to me that, the biological reasons why we would need some more than that. I couldn't just do the math and say that would be 4 months supply. It just didn't work that way. I understood that. And but that idea that whenever you go someplace, because it was running short, that you had to get some more.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting. Now we have 34 rolls, and I said,
interesting.
We are fine. I mean, eventually, I truly believe if there's a time we're out of toilet paper, there's going to be bigger problems with. We'll be running short on power and electricity. Electricity and water and all that, if there are no new rolls of paper, toilet paper. And then on that second note, when you're in that supermarket and you're around people in the back of your mind you say, I have to deal with these people, I live with these people, so my behavior will be, they'll internalize my behavior. They'll remember what I did and how I behaved. And these other people show up and they get into desperation, and they say, well, they don't know who I am. It's a big city mentality. It doesn't. I truly believe it. I don't think people are generally nicer. I think it's the ability to be known, and you're going to behave.
Exactly.
You're more accountable for your behavior.
Yes, yes. I mean, I recognize the employees of Winn-Dixie when I go there. I mean, I may not know all of them by name, but I certainly know most of them by face. And I will tell you, around that time when I, observed the hoarding going on, one of the employees was bitterly complaining about, I have a family, and I am exposed, and we are not allowed to wear masks, and blah, blah, blah. And all I'm doing is doing my self-checkout and trying to get my 4 items, you know what I mean? And she was really upset, and I think, frankly, did not want to be there. She was very afraid, and, of course, fear is a huge motivator. And so, but here's the good news. Now when I've been in the grocery stores, and granted, we're all trying to limit our visits to the grocery stores, I mean, I'm wearing a face mask, a buff for fishing. Basically, I have it because I'm outdoors a lot, and I've noticed many more people are too. And of course, they've put up some of the, is it like called a face guard or whatever, the plastic shields around our cashiers, which is good. That has to bring them some comfort. But I have noticed that the employees themselves also are permitted to wear something on their face if they choose to. So I think that, I think that's a big step. Whether they have permission to do that or not, that's not my purview, because I think initially it seemed like they were not allowed. But I think now everyone has gotten the message that, hey, let's do this. Let's all do this. If we're all wearing a mask, maybe we'll, protect those that are especially vulnerable.
I do know, you do notice it is apparent that there's people that are observing using protective gear, the mask and the gloves and things like that, using social distancing. But I did notice when I was at the supermarket, it's even more glaringly apparent when people aren't doing those things. When they're standing in the aisle and they see someone they know and they gather around the same cart and they're just hanging out, leaning close to each other. And I go, hey, that is up to them. That is that's personally responsibility. But if you want to come in contact with someone else later on, I think it's somewhat sticking your head in the sand or denial. There's radical self-denial that occurs with people that are getting into groups, big groups, still getting together, going to the sandbar. There was supposedly 100 boats there. People say, well, let them do what they're going to do. Well, the responsibility part is, yeah, you may not have it. They don't understand they may not understand the possibility of being asymptomatic.
Right.
You don't have to have the symptoms, and you could pass it on, and you're just elongating the process that social distancing is supposed to interrupt. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, and I think that our public officials have been very measured and are emphasizing the rationale behind the social distancing, so that we can, quote, flatten the curve. Let's get through this, and on the other side as quickly as possible. And if everybody practices social distancing, et cetera, we're back to normal more quickly. Like, I think they're getting that word out. But you're right. Who knows if the boats were 10 feet apart on the sandbar and then the people also, 6 feet apart, or, but yeah, it doesn't seem to adhere to, the overall goal. On the other hand, maybe they figure they're around their family anyway, but now they're around their family out at the sandbar, and they're going to do the best they can. I mean, I doubt anyone was wearing masks out there, but maybe they were. Maybe they were protecting themselves, from the sun and the germs at the same
You're
time.
Being very generous, Jill. I would, if I had money, and I'm not a gambling man, I imagine there were people that kind of fisherman masks, the ones that wear those when they're out fishing. The people that go to the sandbar don't seem to do that often. I did notice, and this is, I got to watch using this word. Is there another word to use, a synonym for anecdotal? Because I went by Key Largo Park with we were riding our bikes, my wife and I, and I
Yep.
purchased a bike. I haven't. I'm a fitness instructor, part time at Mariners Hospital. I teach a spin class. And since I started doing that, I stopped because part of the reasons I started doing indoor spinning was because I used to exercise on a bike, and I got hit by a car, but I didn't get hurt. I just figured if I kept on chancing that getting hit by a car, eventually it was going to not get lucky. So I started exercising in spin, and then I became an instructor. And then when this happened, they closed the gym, and then I purchased a bike. And we're riding our bikes around, and we like going to the parks. We went and played tennis. You know, it was the three of us. We played tennis, my wife, daughter, and I, and figure we're in the same house. So that's us three. And
Yes.
people may say,
Yes.
listen, we're not practicing social distance between ourselves because we're eating meals together and things like that, unless one of us became symptomatic. But as long as we do that, that's who we're interacting. When I go out, I wear the personal protective when we send one person out to do the shopping. So we go to the park yesterday. It was as crowded as I ever seen the park.
Oh, my.
Volleyball courts, every tennis thing was, and I said, tennis, you think, well, how far apart are they going to be and stuff? Well, the transmission thing is the balls, the felt balls.
That's right. We're all
They're
picking them
the
up with
balls
our
are going in,
hands if
picking
we're
them up.
out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the basketball, and the whole place is crowded, and we're just looking at it and said, boy, we can't go to the tennis courts, because there was a fallacy. Some of the things I didn't realize. I learned a little doing some of the remote classes. You have children, right, Jill?
Right. Yes.
How
Two
old are
teen
your
boys.
children?
16 and 19. So one was affected by, our local school closure, and the other one is at a university. And he ended up in the Bahamas happily for 10 days. There was no reason to come back. Mm-hmm. And so, so that was a strange scenario. But anyway, what you were saying about your family, what was that?
Well, I mean, I was doing a science class with my daughter, and I found out some things I had made. I thought that the sunlight was the best disinfectant for it, and it turned out, since the coronavirus is a protein, it's not a living thing, that the sunlight has very little effect on it. The amount of UV radiation that you would get from the sun doesn't really degrade it, or degrade it significantly, which we learned in her science. We were doing, was helping her with her science thing, and I go, wow. And the reason why washing your hands is that the coronavirus is covered by lipid, which is a fat, and using soap, it breaks that fat and allows to degrade the virus underneath the protein. So that 20 minutes, and especially hot water with any soap that foams well, that's the best. And you hear people say, what?
I was going to say, and again, and I'm always a, glasses half full person, but the silver lining down the road when we're through this, is people hopefully have gotten the message how significantly important it is to wash hands frequently. Like every time you come in from the grocery store, every time you are in the bathroom, every time, like literally, it can't have been hammered home any more than it has been recently, the importance of washing your hands.
Yep. Oh, have you ever seen, and this, it's not even 10 years, there's a direct correlation. You ever seen the movie about Howard Hughes, The Aviator, with Leonardo DiCaprio?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, he was germphobic. Yeah, everyone, if they know, and there's scenes in there with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's just washing his hands like crazy. At one point, washes his hands so stringently, he actually cuts his hand.
Oh dear.
Causes a cut. But he's all about that, not touching anything. And I said, boy, that character, the Leonardo Howard Hughes in The Aviator, is the prototypical, evolution of the person that will succeed in not getting sick. And
there you go.
And they're treating him. He was the outlier, the person
Yes.
that was outside the norm.
Back in the day.
And it's a little over a month and a half. We have changed from shaking hands. I think shaking hands is going to become antiquated.
Yep.
And definitely hugs.
Yes.
Hugs will change. Maybe we're going to adopt maybe the bowing. Maybe, people say, hey, maybe the Japanese have it right.
Interesting. And, and of course, again, we're during Easter week, and, County Commissioner Michelle Coldiron posted something about how she had watched a church service online at her church, San Pablo Catholic Church in Marathon. And we always, in that church, in the Catholic religion, we do peace be with you and extend our hands, and you can't do that anymore. So you're right. It may all change. It may all change.
It's going to be like more of a wave, hey.
Yeah,
maybe
that's
actually
exactly
the
right.
Peace sign. Maybe we're going to get back to the peace sign. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And do you have more time?
Yes, I have a few more minutes.
Past
Sure.
A half hour. And this probably has to do with your job too. Some of the meetings I had in the Catholic Mass, I'm not going to get in. There's plenty of people covering whether it's responsible or not have huge gatherings on Easter Sunday. But the social media or the social tools we have now, such as Skype, Zoom, Google, FaceTime. I go to meetings. I belong to you know what? I don't need to keep a secret to you because I don't keep a secret to my listeners. I belong to a 12-step program.
Okay. Yep. Wonderful.
I'm sober. So
yeah.
We do our meetings online, and recently last week people started bombing them. They're called Zoom bombing, where they were interrupting the meetings, and then people adapted. First, the adaptation. I'm not going to be talking about the meetings themselves. I'm talking about the way society's changed. And people say the work from home. Originally, when 20 years ago, when I heard about people telecommuting and things like that, it was you had to be very technically savvy to be able to have a meeting. You had to have a very advanced internet.
Computer.
Yeah, and the computer. Yeah, you had to have good equipment, so it was fast enough. And nowadays, you can do this on your smartphone and things like that. And everyone took a crash course. It seems like people are taking crash courses in this right now, being able to see their masses. We're watching live feeds on YouTube, or you're going to these Zoom meetings. You got people 70 years old that have to learn how to be security conscious, set up a VPN or something like that. It's gotten easier or more user-friendly. How have you experienced it? You were probably doing that already anyway for your job, right?
Yes, much. So some of my meetings that I cover, for example, the Florida Keys Transportation Committee that, is looking to deal with traffic, et cetera, in the Keys, they had a small meeting room in Marathon, and they actually wanted people to attend via a media platform because they simply didn't have room within the meeting room for everybody that maybe wanted to attend. And of course, it's very eco-friendly to watch from the comfort of your home and not be commuting. That would have been about 80 miles round trip for me to go cover this meeting. And so definitely, and it's as simple as somebody sending a link. So literally, if somebody knows the basics about computers and receives an email, a lot of times they can be invited to attend a meeting, and they click on that and they're in. Now, sometimes you have to have the app or, put something on your phone in order to see the person or hear the person. So I get that. But, with a teenager's help, most people can figure all these opportunities out for meeting, like, over the Internet. It's a phenomenal thing. And even internationally, of course, what's that app called? I've got it somewhere on my phone here. It's called WhatsApp, right?
Yeah, WhatsApp.
That's an international one. So say I'm in Italy and want to talk to somebody at home in the Florida Keys, as long as they have that app, it's free. So it really is a wonderful thing. I mean, and then even for, keeping in touch with people out of state. If they can see their face, the first one I think was probably Skype or something like that. And, but certainly there's others like FaceTime, et cetera, and Zoom. I mean, Zoom apparently has taken off the charts in terms of its usage. And, there's always opportunity for these, these Internet gurus. But certainly these apps make it easier to keep in touch. And I've also heard about people taking the time and reconnecting with college friends or people that meant something in their past, but because we're so insanely busy working most of the time in our wonderful U.S. culture, we just don't have time to interact the way we would like. And apparently, people are reconnecting, and it's really a good thing from that perspective.
Oh, 100%. I agree. Sunday I went to a meeting, and it was from the Midlands in the United Kingdom, and yesterday I was because timing is for the meetings in the United States. Obviously, people want to go before work, lunchtime, or after work. That's weekdays, and then weekends are a little variable thing. But because of quarantining, we have all this time available. I wanted to go to a meeting at 10 o'clock, and there was a sunrise meeting in L.A. So I went and did a search, and I found a meeting in L.A., and I went to a meeting in L.A. And,
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it was wonderful. And, if you're up in the middle of the night, you could go to 14 hours ahead. You have Australia. So if I was
Exactly.
Yeah, it was 3 in the morning, and I said, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Australia, I can go to an Australian meeting. So, yeah, we're learning things while we're doing this. It's making people more literate.
Yeah. And I want to say something also about, we're seeing in Italy, in Venice, posts about how Venice's water has cleared up because the boats are not operating, the vaporettos are not.
Hello? Are you back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad I didn't.
Okay.
I was going to hang up and call you back.
Sure. So I was just saying, I've heard in both Venice, Italy, and Paris, France, there is noticeably less pollution. I guess this has also happened in China as well. Notably less pollution just because we're meeting by phone or we're not in our vehicles and we're not in our boats stirring up sediment in various canals. And so water and air pollution is as low as it was, 50 years ago or something. So again, these crazy phenomena are happening, and boy, if we can maintain some of the lessons we learned, it's just going to be a great thing. And then one last thing I want to say.
If you wanted to look at LA, if you Google LA skyline over the last 4 weeks, it is beautiful, brilliant blue out there, and where
Isn't that amazing?
It was well covered. I'm sorry I interrupted. Yes.
No. And tonight is a supermoon. So again, if we're social distancing, we can all go outside and look at our supermoon out there. And I guess that means, it's very close to the Earth or whatever, one of the larger moons, maybe the largest in this year. But anyway, just it's little activities like that
I must have misheard that. I thought it was an option.
I
that,
see.
yeah, you could either stay in and have soup, or you can go outside and look at the moon. So it's a soup or moon.
Soup or moon. I
we're
got it.
primarily at heart. The Keys Bartender is a comedy podcast, but because of
I
public
tell you,
service,
that is funny. That's good.
it's lame. I know. I try not to do. Hey, listen, I do check explicit because every time, so often people throw out the F word because it's a bar show. So
Oh,
I
right,
just leave, I
right.
leave it checked to explicit, even though we didn't do anything explicit. So yet,
but just in case.
yes.
Just in case.
No, but
Well,
no, the
maybe.
supermoon tonight. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's the simple things, and we definitely can appreciate those, even though we're doing our best to observe what we must do at this time. And again, it won't last forever. Everyone's saying that expression, "This too shall pass," and that's what people have to believe and hang on to. And certainly, if people need food, there are free foods at pantries and through restaurants, and the generosity of our Keys-wide community is phenomenal. And then even I'm hearing if people need to talk to somebody, all the hotlines or that kind of thing are available. The pastors, the priests, the rabbis, they are there. Just pick up the phone. It makes a difference. If somebody needs to talk to somebody, if they live alone, by all means, pick up the phone and talk to somebody. People are more than willing to be a listening ear. So they shouldn't feel alone. We might be cooped up, but we're not alone.
Well, thank you for your words of optimism, Jill. And I think on that note, maybe we should end on the high note. As George Costanza, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you leave on your high note right there. So.
Well, I so appreciate talking with you this morning, and I'm very happy I am now aware of your podcast and learned a little bit about you, and I thank you for doing this.
Oh, sure. And I'd like to have you on again, and we could, we could talk about coming out of it eventually. And if you have anything you want to talk about, I'm willing, anytime.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, and what I was, I don't do any. Right now, I'm not doing any advertising right now because I think it's kind of crass. I mentioned I do one of my shows with a friend of mine who's a retired psychologist, and he lives in Spain for half the year. He's originally from Baltimore, and we were talking about getting sales calls during the pandemic. I had someone. I was about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I was looking for a car. I'm looking for an electric vehicle. And they called me up less than a week ago. And I said, I don't have any place to go right now. I have 2 cars, and actually my cars are very efficient right now. I only get a tank of gas every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks. I haven't gotten any gas in 3 weeks, and I still have more than 3/4 of a tank. So, an electric vehicle would be moot at this point. So.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm not selling short that in the future. I'm just saying
the feature.
At this moment. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and eventually
sure.
I think you may get a little more incentives coming in. Sure.
There you go. So economic planning there.
Yes. Well, Jill, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Best of luck with everything. Best to your family, and thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Oh, take care, Jill.
Bye, Jim.
Goodbye. Well, folks, that was wonderful having Jill here. We are going to do, later on today, we're going to be doing a show, another live show at 7:30. This is my erstwhile sister, she's my sister all the time, and my brother-in-law. They are I don't know how to call them. They're not exotic. They are certainly, they have their habits. So I hope we have a good show right there. And I will be back to you later on tonight, and then we have a couple other shows come to you. Thank you for listening, and have a great day, and be healthy. Practice your social distance, and remember to wash your hands. There was a Korean girl that worked on a cruise ship, and she always stand at the entrance of the restaurants we would go to, and she'd go, washi, 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 did it. And I used to like that. So, but it almost sounded like a massage parlor when I heard that. But have a great day, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.